Thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. So I want to do a short and brief introduction about myself and the platform, so you can get to know a bit about what this whole thing is all about. So my name is Timothy. I'm a podcaster, but what I really enjoy calling myself is someone that documents stories. I saw it that I tend to see that stories are one of the ways to transform life. A lot of us lack mentor in per se that probably have not gotten to that place where we could see someone that is in that place that can mentor us. But some of us are privileged to document your stories, and we believe through that people can tend to learn from you even from afar, and get closer to those principles you were able to use to become what you are today. So that's why I reached out to you to document your story. It's so should I say it's shocking or surprising, but it's so amazing to see your age and the things you are achieving. I should mention that the first time I met with you was at the conference you did in Lagos, where Anita Ashiro attended. That was the conference I met with you. And when I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
hearing your story, I was like, come on, Timo, what are you doing with your life? So I'm really interested in really knowing how you became so smart at that early age, that you were willing to take risks at that early age, and things worked. Should I say things worked for you so early? That's what people from afar will say. We say things worked out for you so early, because really probably a lot of us are not lazy, but we just believe the future is in the future. So we keep doing our best and expecting the results in the future. But I feel you got those results, should I say early? What were the really secret recipe that you got so early that made you achieve all of those at a very early age?
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much. It might look like a regular thing, but when people reach out to me for some form of engagement or to tell my story, it's more humbling than anything else. Regardless of the fact that I might look like the one that's, oh, okay, I'm used to this. It shocks me every time, regardless of the platform, regardless of the person. I'm always like, look, this is a human being that feels like I'm worthy enough of, just sharing my story. Um, and I do that because I know where I'm coming from. And it's, how do I put this? It's very humbling. Like, it's different when maybe you were born into it, or, you had parents that sort of, like had access to certain things. But when it's just a function of, okay, you are your own person and this is who you want to become, and you have to take the necessary steps to get there, it's always humbling. So big or small platform, I'm happy to be here and to share. So now, to answer your question, okay, first of all, my name is Ifeoma for anybody who might not like know me yet, who might be listening and might not know me. My name is Ifeoma. I am I'm many things, but currently I am the co-founder and COO of SendStack, right, mobility tech company, and we are solving the problems for last mile logistics for African businesses. Um, Apart from that, I'm a creative. I write. I'm a really great writer.
I see that in
Like,
your captions. When you upload your captions, are always like, no.
yes, yes, I mean, that's one talent I had to admit that I have, and I'm just an all-round creative. I'm a very strategic person. Anything creativity, clothes, styling, like communications, you would find me there. Um, but above all, or like more than any of these fractions of myself, the most encompassing description of me is that I'm a child and a friend of God. And I say that because that is going to form the basis, or that is like the basis or the foundation of everything that is being seen or projected on the outside. To answer the question more directly, how did I become I don't even know what that means, but I'll try. So I think all naturally like products of our environments, of our natural environments and our experiences. And there are things that just shape us into who we become, not because we really plan those things, but because that's how life works. And this question reminds me of, one big incident that literally changed the course of my life forever. I lost my mom when I was 12 years old. And even though the emotional, part of the emotional part of it has, like, I don't feel sad when I think of it anymore. It's a life-changing experience that will always be a part of why I am the way I am. This is because losing the parent that was the fundamental caretaker, it forced me and my siblings and even my dad to be more independent. It shook all of us and, took us to the point where we just knew that our lives had changed forever. And that obviously like influenced behavioral decisions, the way our family, was set up, the things that we had to learn and unlearn. We had to learn how to be kinder to each other because, like literally anybody can die. We had to learn about salvation and how, look, there's no promised time for when you die. So you have to give your life to Christ today that you're still alive. So we learned a lot of things just from that experience. And when I say this, I'm not saying that your parents or you have to lose a parent to learn what I've learned, but that was what happened that, forced me out of a comfort zone. And so as early as 15 years old, I was out on the streets. And when I say streets, I was not like hawking or anything or selling. No, it wasn't that. But I was basically now looking for things to do. Like I was not in a comfort zone. I didn't like, I don't come from a rich home. That's the truth. We've always had the things that we've needed: clothes, food, shelter, but nothing more than that at any point. Even getting certain things, have been like a struggle sometimes. And so all of those experiences joined together, they just take you to a place where you know that, okay, even though you did not have this from where you came from, you can create it for yourself. And I believe in the concept or in the principle of creating from nothing, because that's literally how the whole world came into being. Jesus spoke life into the earth, and that's how everything was formed. So because we have that power, we have that authority to be as God did, then we can also do it, at least in the capacity of our own lives. We may not be able to change the whole world, but we can change our lives. And more often than not, one thing I've seen is that when you change your life, there's so many other lives that, you change as a ripple effect. And so it's up to you to have a negative or a positive change, right? So however you turn out is going to affect the people around you, your primary environment, and even sometimes in your secondary environment. So I would say, just in a nutshell, my experiences led me up to this point. I have always, and of course, even for my parent who is alive, that's my dad, he trained us in such a solid way. Like, he trained us in a way that we knew that there was a world out there that we needed to go and explore, even though he might not have done that himself. Because I think the most interesting thing about being a parent is how you literally learn on the job, and you see how, like, the mistakes you made, you actively try to avoid it for your own children. So my dad was the stricter parent when, we were much younger. Obviously, he softened up, eventually. But I remember, and I have memories of him being the stricter one. And I'm forever thankful for that. I'm forever grateful for the discipline that he instilled in each and every single one of us. He did such a great job. And to me, it's just like, yes, this is what being a parent means. It means owning up to your mistakes. It means making sure that your children always want the best for themselves. It means showing your children that things are possible, whether you did them or not. Because at the end of the day, we are all limited by time. So something my dad might have learned at a later stage in his life, he may not really be able to apply it, if he had known that earlier. So, I mean, the best thing is to make sure your children don't make, those mistakes, or they learn certain lessons. And my dad has always taught us to be confident, like even just in the way we appear, right? But also the more important type of confidence, which is like on the inside, making sure that you don't let anybody intimidate you. I learned that from my father. And just even being bold about the things My dad is also a writer. He's a really like intelligent person. Like a lot of things I know were just passed down, from my parents and my siblings. So I would say like, yeah, it's really a matter of perspective. You may not always, have what you imagined would have made your life better if you had them, but with what you have, you're able to make the best out of it. And when we hear like people say this, we think they're being motivational, but that's just that's just what it is. Like it is actually just what it is. So yeah.
I want to ask, okay, the first question, this set of questions I want to ask look light, but let's go into much more deeper thing before I get into that.
Yeah.
You, how were you able to handle the much? I don't know how you say you're not born from a rich home, like more than the average need. So when much was coming, did you make any mistake? You were young, much was coming, much that you have never experienced before. I mean, in terms of finance, you were getting access to bigger people, much people of influence. You're getting access to platforms. How were you able to handle all of those? Did you feel you made mistake early when the money was rushing in, or where the platforms or the opportunities was rushing in, or they were stuff you were well prepared for, and you're able to handle it on the first go?
Yeah. So first of all, I don't know. I don't I mean, maybe I give the impression that much has come in, and that's really, I don't want to downplay anything. These things are always relative, but I would say that for every point that I've been at, every phase that I've passed through, I've always had exactly what I needed to push through and get to the next phase. I've always been, like resourceful or just materially equipped. And I can tell you that is a function of how much work I've done, but then that would be like a half truth, which is practically a lie. A lot of the things I have today, and oh my God, I cannot emphasize this enough, are just results of clarity and direction that come from God.
Hmm.
So for me, I define success as being where I am, being where I need to be at the time I need to be there, doing the things that I need to do with the people I need to do it with. Because when you put all these factors together, you realize that there's little or no room for mistakes, right? Um, so I won't say, oh, there's been much, like, but I would say another thing is going back to even my background. My mom, oh my God, again, my parents, like they taught us how to save and how to, have respect for money. I learned those things from my family. I learned those things from
I
watching
love
my
that
dad.
phrase. Let have respect for money.
Yes, like have respect for money. Don't let money be like a controlling factor, because in the grand scheme of things, money is the lowest level of assets. Like the more you progress, you start to see that there's much more valuable things than money. And this is not to say that we don't need money. It's just like you start to see there's relationships you need. There are, activities you would value more. And obviously money would give you access to these people and these activities. But in the grand scheme of things, money is just a means of exchange. And sometimes you really need to view things as, how can I exchange value? So there are even times where on some of these platforms, it didn't really reflect monetarily. I was doing things for free, or when I was a model, I would model for free or at a very like ridiculous rate, like in retrospect. But then it was just paying my basic bills as a student. So I was like, okay, look, you can't be proud. You have to be smart. You have to know what you want and what you want to get out of something apart from money. So I learned some of these fundamental principles of money from my parents. I can't, really take all the credit, because I do remember even my mom, when I was really young, I think maybe like 8 or 9 years old, 36,500 naira was such a big amount of money to me then. But my mom explained it in such a simple way. Every day when she would give me money for school, she would say, oh, Ifeoma, if you save 10 naira or 100 naira from this money every day for the next 1 year, you have 36,500 naira by the end of the year. And so like the thought of that would get me very excited. And I remember I started to practice that. And then there are no like apps, so I didn't have like a phone or anything. So I had like a red purse. I remember the purse. I had a red purse that I would put in my underwear like basket. And every time when they give me money, I would go and put like part of the money there. And I remember how handy that money came in. When I was getting signed to my first modeling agency, I needed to pay a fee to join. I don't think those fees exist anymore. And I don't think my dad could afford that at the time, like to give me to go and pay for modeling registration. So I had that money that I'd been saving for a period of time. And that was how I was able to pay for this thing that eventually, like gave me the platform that I needed. And so just putting all of those things together, it just shows me how everything always adds up. So I would say, like money is a great servant, but a very horrible master. So I try to see, like I try to just like have that in mind. So even when I'm doing anything, I try to think of other benefits I can get from that thing. Even when you're negotiating salary sometimes, yes, I know some people want the monetary like salary, but you negotiate health benefits, you negotiate equity, you negotiate leave days, you negotiate, just other things that would add to the quality of your life. And when you put that in context, you really start to see how, like, at the end of the day, yes, I could be earning 3 million or say, oh, my salary is 3 million naira, but maybe something comes and then that 3 million naira goes on hospital bills, and then like you're left with nothing. So it's like, yeah, so I would say that. And then obviously, like, in my phase as a model, I became freelance at some point, and I really had to learn the hard rules of negotiating with people, what to do, what not to do, what to say, how to think of it, and all of these things. So those like little or like small bits of knowledge eventually compound and make you, realize, okay, maybe you need to learn more about this thing, but at least you understand how they fundamentally work, and you just build on top of that, really. So I would say yes, I've always, thankfully not been crazy over like, oh, money, and then lose my mind.
I can, from your story, I can draft that. If I'm to draft a summary of how Ifeoma became mighty at a very young age, one of the major things I would draft in that book is she believed in God, or was able to encounter God early in her life, and she had a supportive background in terms of family, and those were major contributing factor to her success. But a lot of people don't have this advantage you had, and they don't have. I was watching a movie right before I got on the call with you. It's a movie about Mike Tyson. I think the title is Mike. It's a series, and
Yeah.
Mike was doing the narration about even how his mother rather doesn't believe in him. So people that are coming from a background where they nobody believes in them, they don't even know what they carry, and probably they have God, but they have God religiously as per not to go to hell. That they have God because they don't want to go to hell. What will you say to someone like that, and is eager to succeed, and probably doesn't have, should I say, what it takes, or a comfortable environment to actualize his or her dream?
Yeah, like, I mean, it's pretty obvious, or it's pretty clear. Two things, or three, or four. First of all, a relationship with God is free. Like, you don't need money for that. In
Mhm.
fact, that's one of the things that if you pay for is actually wrong. If you pay, pastor, I want to hear from God, I want to, it's free. Like, it's literally free, and it's so simple that it's so mind-blowing that all you have to do is believe that Jesus Christ died and rose up from the dead, and he saved the sins, or he took away the sins of the world, like including you. That's all you need to believe, and from there you receive the Holy Spirit, and then you receive the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and then you're able to express those gifts. Because how does clarity or direction come from God? By that belief, and then by building that relationship consistently. And it's the same principle of building any relationship with any human being. Oh, you talk to this person every day, you understand what they like, they understand who you are. you guys talk, you make sure that you don't do anything that hurts them intentionally. If you do something that hurts them intentionally, make sure that you go back to apologize and don't take their forgiveness for granted. These are the same principles of building human relationships, and it's the same thing with God. So the first thing is like not seeing a relationship, an intimate relationship with God, as an impossibility. That's the biggest lie you ever tell yourself, because there is no advice, there's no number of podcasts, there's no amount of books you will read that will give you the same level of understanding or direction that is tailored to your own life more than hearing from God directly. Because when you think about it, it's like a car, right? The person who designed the car knows the inside and the outside more than even you who is driving the car. You can learn how to drive the car and learn how to direct it, but that will not stop you from having a very ghastly accident if there's a fundamental part of that car that is faulty that you don't know and you still drive it. So yeah, like, I know we're in a religious society where people just want to be Christians for the sake of going to heaven. But guess what? God wants us to have a fulfilling life here on earth before we get to heaven. And when we get there, for those of us who believe, he will literally ask us, what did we do with A, B, C, D, E that he gave to you? And you have to answer for yourself, right? So there's that. A relationship with God is free. Like, if you want to be held by the chains of religion, then that's like a decision you're making. And I'm hoping that by listening to me, you do realize that there are two options, or three: having an intimate relationship with God, just being in the middle, very lukewarm, or not even caring about it at all. So in this life, there are always options. And I would say, like, I've chosen the best option that exists, like, objectively. And then the second thing is like, about like background, or like having people who believe in you. I would say, like, sometimes we do overrate the need for other people to believe in us first. And I'll give an example of myself. My dad did not exactly believe in modeling. He only did not stop me. And those are two different things. I know there are some parents that will go out of their way to make sure you don't do something. They are the parents that would show you support actively and tell you they believe in your dreams. And there are some parents that would just be like, look, I trained this child. I trust that they know how to make good decisions. Even though I don't support this decision, I'm not going to stop them. And my father fell into that, or falls into that category, right? And like, sometimes that's all you need. If you're sitting down waiting for someone who is going to tell you that, like, sometimes you need, I feel like as human beings, we need to learn how to be self-starters, because the world is just designed for people to be attracted to what they perceive is successful. And we could spend time trying to change how things work, or we could show people through our own lives that ABC is possible. So I would say sometimes it's overrated. And this is not me even trying to be like insensitive to people's experiences, but do you really need people who believe in you? Or if you believe in yourself enough to do what you want to do, why is that not enough for you? Because it's the same problem of constantly seeking external validation from people we don't even know. And I say this because we see it happen in like a social media age where you want people to validate every single opinion. You want people to validate every single decision. But sometimes you have more context on your own life than anybody else can ever see. All they see is a part of the process. So I would say, if you're one of those people that you probably don't have as much support as you imagine you want, don't romanticize the idea of that. Because I'll tell you, that could also be a disadvantage. Some people have so many people who only tell them yes to everything that they're not able to make decisions in a way that is tailored for their own lives. They become people pleasers. Yeah. And like, that's also coming from something that seems good, like having support. So sometimes just be a self-starter. And another thing is, be able to identify the people who are really rooting for you. Because sometimes I find that we have these people, we are just not focused on them because we want to force a group of other people into becoming who we want them to be. So sometimes it's not your family, but then you have friends. Sometimes it's not your friends, but then you have an online community. Sometimes it's not an online community, it's your family. You have to just look and, be able to decipher quickly, the people that believe in you, and focus on that. It reminds me of the story of Nehemiah. People always come along when you make the first move. Nehemiah was probably going to, he felt like it was going to take him years to rebuild the wall. But he did that in 52 days or so, because when he started, it seemed so crazy, but then people joined him on that journey. People came and they joined him on that journey of building and protecting the wall. So sometimes you too, you just need to start first, and you would find the people. And then the last thing is, not everybody is going to care about you or care about what you're doing. I think we need to be okay with that. So find active ways to always get feedback from the people who care about what you're doing. And when you discover that the people that don't care, you leave them. I think we make this mistake sometimes. Like, even when we start businesses, we feel like, oh, our friends should be the ones patronizing us. No, your friends are not your customers. Go and find your customers. Like, leave your friends alone. They're already your friends. Like, go and market this thing. Go and learn how to sell your products. Don't guilt trip people into buying from you, because how sustainable is that? So sometimes we also need to just realize that, look, there'll be some people who will never buy a single thing we sell, and that's fine. Like, focus on the things that are there and that are working, and get feedback on things that are not working, and be able to make as many iterations as possible, so you can keep growing. So there's really no excuse at the end of the day. Like, it's just what it is, to be fair.
I don't know. Do you have on your bio on IG? Probably I have to check. Do you have the portfolio that says public speaking? Or
No, but this is something I'm looking to do more of
I,
this
I
year.
I really think you should do
So
more of this. I have one of the things I'm grateful to is this podcast. When I look out for, I told God about, okay, I think this is the first time I'm saying this.
yeah,
I told God about the vision of this, about how I hope this will be one of the two that people will hear and be able to get transformed, as in get directions about
yeah,
what they should do with their life. And really, and I'm always grateful to people the Lord points me to bring to this platform. They're always people that
yeah,
get the gist, the idea, the vision, and they're able to deliver so well. I
yeah,
wanted to ask the last question before we call it a conversation.
yeah.
I won't want to take a lot of your time. Do you have
No.
fears, and how do you do it? Do you think like you are getting this money early, or you are getting this success early, and do you have any kind of fear, and how do you deal with your fear? That would be the last question.
Yeah. So something I learned about fear is transferred, fear is projected, you know. And I say this, like, when I look at babies, like children, they're not afraid of anything, you know. We're the ones that will tell them, oh, don't put your hand there, don't put your hand there. But and even though they might do it and get hurt, that's lesson of not being afraid, because you're just not afraid, is something that I really admire in children. Do I have fears? And I'm going to be as honest as possible. The answer is no. And this is not even me trying to be, again, motivational. I'm not afraid of anything. Let me, even give what, okay, the most common thing that people are afraid of: dying, right? Why are people afraid of dying? For example, if I die tomorrow or I die next week, I mean, it's not going to happen, right? I'm going to heaven. Like, I've received eternal life. I know Jesus. I'm not going to hell. I'm going to enjoy life with my Father in heaven, right? So if I'm here on earth, if I'm not dying, what else will I be afraid of? Failing, not succeeding. I've gotten to the point where there's nothing I will ever do that will not be successful, because there's a track record of this thing. You do one thing, it blows up. You do another thing, it's effortless. I feel like we sometimes we underrate
And I
ourselves too
connect to
much.
this grace, ma.
Sometimes we underrate ourselves so much when the proof is literally there. Like, I see my like journey sometimes, and I'm just like, wow, if you're still afraid that God cannot help you through the situation, then what have you really learned from all these past experiences? right? So there's nothing that comes to my mind, like a constant fear sitting in my mind. I can say, okay, there are experiences I have to go through that in the moment I feel afraid. But then there's a recipe for dealing with that. And it's just speaking the word, looking back at the track record of how things have always played out, keying into other people's stories and their own testimonies, just like making sure that that fear, that thing that makes you afraid in the moment, doesn't settle in your mind, that it now becomes oh, I'm afraid of dying, I'm afraid of not succeeding. Like, you can have those thoughts. It's totally fine and normal to have those thoughts flash through your mind sometimes. It's okay. We are human beings. Like, but don't let those things build up in your mind to the point where that now becomes an identity that you have. Like, oh, I'm afraid of this. It's just what it is. Oh, something phobia. It's okay to discover like that there certain phobia you have, but just don't now define yourself based on that thing. Like, it's like fear is things that you're afraid of are probably afraid of you as well. And just coming into like that point of realization of your authority. And I'm sorry, but this might not apply to people who don't believe in God. But it also takes me back to the first, or one of the first points I made, that it's free to actually believe in God. So there's no blocker. If you don't believe in God and you have fears, you can believe in God and stop having fears. If you believe in God and you have fears, you can have those conversations and get to know what He has said about you, about your life, that will eventually help you, like get rid of those fears. So there's always a way out. And I'm really thankful that I've gotten to this point, because it was not always this way. I do remember like actively like phases of my life where I was constantly depressed and anxious, and those were like results of things that fear produced in my heart. So I'm not there anymore, and I'm never going back there. So no, I mean, like, there's nothing I'm afraid of.
Wow. I'm so blessed to have you on this platform. Really, it's really a blessing.
Hi, this is Ifeoma NWOBU. I'm the co-founder and COO at SendStack, and I'm in talk with Timod Mowale.